So you might have heard people saying being delusional is the solution, but is it really? If you're delusional, then you'd be doing stuff like really believing your SP is with you right now, walking into their house and getting arrested for trespassing. Or if you're manifesting wealth, then you might go out and buy like a $50,000 sports car and then end up in debt. Or if you were like Neville Goddard, believing that he truly was in Barbados when he was actually in New York City, then he might have just walked off a subway platform into disaster. So if being delusional is not the solution, then why do so many people say that? By the way, hi, I'm Leanna. Welcome to my channel about manifesting. In this video, I'm hoping I clear up some misunderstandings about delusions so that you can get your manifestation faster. A lot of people misunderstand source teachers when they say that you need to believe that you have it now. They don't actually mean that you need to be delusional or have like a psychotic break and think that your 3D is actually reflecting that right now. Like, they don't actually want you to hallucinate that you have $1 million in the bank or that SP is in your house or in your bed with you. They mean that they want you to think and feel as if you are the person who already has your desire. But how do you do that when it looks like the 3D is contradicting everything that you want? So for example, when Abdullah said to Neville, you are in Barbados, he didn't mean like you're actually there, and if you go out this door right now and you still see New York City around you, then you're doing it wrong. Like, he didn't actually want Neville to hear and see with his 3D eyes the sights and sounds of Barbados. He wanted Neville to feel as if, or imagine as if, and to think as if he was in Barbados. So that would include feeling things like being relaxed, feeling like you're surrounded by family, feeling at peace, feeling loved. He might have thoughts like, I finally made it. I don't have to worry about how I'm gonna get to Barbados anymore. My relatives and my sisters are nearby and easy to talk to. If he were in Barbados, he wouldn't be thinking, okay, how am I gonna afford a plane ticket to Barbados? How am I gonna book the next ship to Barbados when they're already full? He's not gonna be worried about the how. He's not gonna be worried about whether it's possible. He's just gonna be calm. His entire state of mind, his whole mental diet and his thinking is gonna be different. So instead of wasting time trying to convince yourself that your SP is right here with you, next to you on the couch, or like imagining that, instead try to observe your thoughts and observe your feelings. Are they actually in alignment with how you would feel and think if you had your desire right now? That's what Abdullah meant when he said you are in Barbados, because you're in Barbados is a hell of a lot shorter than saying, damn it, Neville, I told you to think and feel as if you are in Barbados, and you're not doing it because right now you're embodying a state of being someone in New York City frantic about how they're going to get to Barbados. It just rolls off the tongue a little more easily. Remember, your 3D and what you see is just a reflection of your inner state of mind. The source teachers never taught us to be delusional. They wanted to constantly remind us that inside our 4D, we're not there yet. We need to pay attention to what we're thinking, what we're expecting, feeling, and believing. The 3D is meant to be used as a mirror to check what your 4D reality is. Like, I don't go around saying ignore all mirrors, they're not actually you. It's not actually a clone, like some weird alien doppelganger of you that's on the other side of the glass, and therefore you should cover up all mirrors and throw them out. You can use mirrors to your advantage. If you have something stuck in your teeth, for example, and you're looking in the mirror to get rid of it, you don't take a hammer and chisel and try to crack the spot in the mirror where you see the food stuck in your teeth. You know that it's just a reflection of you. You're the primary reality in this situation. You know that you just have to like reach into your mouth and dig that piece of food out, and the mirror will reflect what you want to see, which is how you want to be presented in the world, someone without food in their teeth. You're not supposed to be picking it off of the mirror. You're also not supposed to just cover up the mirror and say, okay, well, I don't see food in my teeth in the mirror anymore, and therefore it's solved. That would be the equivalent of ignoring the 3D completely and saying like, no, I don't want to see any feedback about what I'm doing. I don't want to see any physical representation of what's going on in my mind. The trick is you shouldn't let that physical representation throw you off, in the sense of like, oh no, there's a doppelganger in there. But that's completely different than using it as a guide, the way most humans use mirrors to put on makeup or to get ready in the morning. So you can use the mirror, you can use a 3D as a tool to check how you're doing. If you're seeing hot and cold behavior from your SP, and you understand that this is a reflection of your inner mind, if your SP is being really warm and sweet on some days, and being really cold and detached on other days, if you understand that this is a reflection of you and what you think and expect and feel, then you should observe, okay, what's going on in my mind? Why is it that sometimes I feel like he's mine, like he's sweet and loving, but sometimes I feel like he's just an asshole? What are the triggers in my life that are causing me to feel this way? If it's social media triggering me, or if it's a certain friend that keeps telling me that this SP isn't good for you, then maybe you should adjust your life because they're affecting your 4D. If you can't control how you feel in the 4D, then you should make it so that you don't expose yourself to the things make you feel certain ways until you build up the practice and the fortitude to be able to control your mental states better and keep yourself more frequently and more intensely in a state of having your SP. Ask yourself, if the 3D is truly a reflection of my inner mind, then what am I doing in my mind where sometimes I'm feeling and expecting them to be really sweet and loving, but sometimes expecting them to be an asshole? What is it about my day, or what is it about my belief systems or the way that I think, my thought patterns, that causes me to think that way? It might also just be a habit that you have never tried to break before. It could be something a little more deeply entrenched, like maybe you have a firm belief that people just don't commit, or maybe you have bad beliefs about relationships or love in general, or maybe you have beliefs about your own worthiness. And in this case, the 3D would help guide you towards what you need to address or what you need to change about your life. So for example, you might realize, okay, maybe I should stop looking at SP social media, or maybe I need to work on my beliefs, maybe I need to work on my self-worth. But if you just completely ignore the 3D and you just plug your ears and go, la la la, I'm not gonna look at it at all, then you wouldn't have known that sometimes you're doing something good that leads to your SP being warm and loving, and sometimes you're doing something that leads to them being really cold and distant. Your 3D is meant to be used as a tool, just like a mirror is. Like in a mirror, you change something about your hair, you check it, you change something about your hair again, you check it again. Just like that, you're supposed to look at your 3D as a tool. There is some time delay, yes, but to completely throw it out and ignore it is really giving yourself a disadvantage. The 3D is sort of like what you see outside your windshield when you're driving. Sure, you could just rely on Google Maps to tell you exactly where you are and just black out your windshield completely and drive according to Google Maps. But why would you do that? You get so much feedback, visual feedback from the road, from where you are. It's useful information. You'd be making your life a lot harder by not looking at where you are. You're not meant to look at the 3D and think, oh geez, my desire isn't here yet. Oh no, where's my SP? Where's the job that I've been manifesting? Where's my wealth? It'd be like sitting in your driveway and thinking, okay, well, I typed in where I want to go into Google Maps, just like how everyone says to use it, but I'm not there yet. I'm not at my friend's house. I'm not at the restaurant. What gives? I did everything right. You're supposed to continue and persist and keep following what the map says, and eventually you'll get there. You're not supposed to stop in the middle and spiral and be like, oh, but Google Maps said that this was the way to the restaurant. Why am I not there yet? Your 3D, just like where you are in the road, is a way for you to check where you are along your journey to where you want to go. You know the steps to manifest. I'm sure you've been taught dozens of techniques on how to get there. I'm assuming you know exactly what you want and that you're manifesting a specific thing. And if you're not there yet, that's feedback for you on where to go. If you're getting some movement, great, you're doing something right. If you're not getting any movement at all, then maybe it's time to look at how carefully you're following the technique and check whether or not you're doing it right. Or you just might not be doing it enough. If you're gonna press the gas pedal a millimeter and then complain that you're not going anywhere even though you are pressing on the gas pedal, you might just not be doing enough. If you're just gonna do 1 second of visualization, that might not be enough to get you there. For some people it may, but for you, maybe you have a little more resistance, or you just have a lot of mental work to undo, or maybe you might have been dwelling in the opposite state of what you wanted for years before. Basically, there's a difference between living as if and living from the end. When Neville says living from the end, he means your thoughts, your imaginings, your feelings. He doesn't mean actually go out and act as if you are the person who has what you want. For example, going out and buying that yacht that you can't actually afford right now, or walking into your SP's house and getting arrested for trespassing. It doesn't mean spending money as if you have it. It means still doing what you need to do, which might mean showing up for your job, but thinking and feeling as if you have what you want. So you'd feel relaxed, you'd feel free, you'd feel accomplished, grateful, abundant. You wouldn't be worried about your job anymore. You'd be thinking about all the ways you'd spend your money. You wouldn't feel like you're so harried for time anymore. It is possible to feel that way even when the 3D doesn't show you the reality. Some of you might say, okay, great, but I have all these bills, I have all these things in my 3D that are showing me the opposite. How am I supposed to feel these things if I know in my 3D that they're not true? How can you feel that it's real without actually being delusional? You already do this all the time without having to see something concrete in a 3D. And it's by suspending your disbelief. It's by choosing what you focus on. So for example, when you're watching a movie, if it's a horror movie, even though you see these bloody zombies, you know that zombies aren't real. You know that it's just fake blood on some actors. You know it's all Hollywood, but you're still able to feel that fear and suspense. When you watch an animated movie, you're still able to feel empathy for the characters, even though you know they're just drawings. It's the same as if you're being told a story with words. If I were to tell you like a riveting story or a tragic story, you still feel like they were real even if I made up that story. You're bringing those images in your mind, you're understanding the story in your mind. You're still able to feel those emotions, even without seeing it in 3D because they're just my words. Or when you read a book, you can still cry or feel happy or sad or angry, even though they're just ink on a page. You're able to suspend that disbelief and you're able to paint that picture. You're able to write that story in your mind. And so for your desire, you should be able to do the same thing. So instead of stressing yourself out trying to imagine your SPs in your house, instead ask yourself, what is it that I really want and how would I feel if I already had it? Let's say I got my manifestation yesterday. How would I feel today? If I got it tomorrow, how would I feel tomorrow? If SP asked you out and said, let's go exclusive, how would you think and feel? What would be the things that you're imagining from day to day when they're there and when they're not there? So you might think, I feel so lucky, I feel so grateful, I feel so loved, I finally feel validated, like he finally recognizes me for who I am, I've been here this whole time. You might think, oh my goodness, where are we gonna go on a date this weekend? You would not be thinking thoughts like, oh, is he out with his third party right now? No, you'd be thinking things like, what should we do for Valentine's Day? You'd be thinking, okay, what are some cute date ideas that we could do this weekend? Compare those thoughts to the thoughts that you think now. And you might be thinking, but I do think those thoughts. And that might be true, but how often do you think, oh my goodness, like, look at this social media post where he's out with other people or with another girl, or why isn't he texting me back, or he still has me blocked, when is my manifestation gonna pan out? These are thoughts that you would not be thinking if you were actually married to your SP. Or say you're trying to manifest $50,000. How would I feel? I wouldn't be worried, I wouldn't be concerned. I feel like I can easily afford whatever luxury item I want. I wouldn't be worried about rent or bills. I feel calm, grateful, excited. I feel like I can splurge on whatever I want at dinner tonight. I definitely wouldn't be thinking thoughts like, how the heck am I gonna pay this bill? If work is really tough that day, I wouldn't be like, but I can't leave, I really need this job. I'd just be like, whatever, I can leave anytime I want. And you might say to me, I am doing that. I already feel and think that way. Okay, but if you're only doing it for 4 minutes a day, and the other like 23 hours and 56 minutes, you are spiraling or being anxious or thinking thoughts like, how am I gonna make rent? How am I gonna pay the bills? I work tomorrow, I hate working, but I can't quit. Things are so expensive nowadays. Do I have enough to buy groceries this week? Man, the job market sucks right now. Or like, capitalism sucks, I'm stuck here, the poor get poorer, the rich get richer, the economy is in shambles, or I'm jealous of all these people that do have money. Like, you can't just be doing 20 hours of that and then 4 minutes of what you want and then wonder where your desire is. It doesn't make sense to feel abundant for 4 minutes a day and for the other 23 hours just undo all that by feeling the exact opposite really intensely and with a lot of imagination, where you're thinking like, okay, what if this catastrophic financial event happens? What do I do then? Because it would only take you like approximately 4 minutes of spiraling to undo the 4 minutes of work you just did. Now, I'm not saying it only ever comes down to how much time spent, because intensity of feeling matters. But this is why some source teachers say that it's okay to distract yourself by thinking about something else. If you can't make yourself not spiral, then just do an activity that'll take your mind off it. Because if you're watching a movie or playing a video game, at least at that moment, you're not thinking negative thoughts about not having money. You're not manifesting more not having money or not having your SP or whatever. Another thing I want to address is something I notice a lot of people who are practicing delusion do, is that they'll ignore their inner thoughts too. So for example, they might be manifesting SP, and then while being delusional, they'll just repress all their doubts and anxieties without trying to address them at all, without like facing them. Because when you actually face your fears and you realize that they're unfounded, they won't bother you anymore. But these people just spend weeks and months running from that because they think that being delusional is the solution. I knew this girl who would lie to herself and lie to us that she was in a relationship with her SP, but then every other day be like crying and spiraling. It even got to the point where she was trying to convince other people that she had like a plane ticket purchased to go visit her SP, and when we'd be like, well, does SP know about it? She'd be like, no. But the thing is, like, I knew that her inner state, her inner mind wasn't where she needed to be. I could tell that she was struggling with deep feelings of unworthiness inside. So these are the kinds of things that I'm talking about. Like, if you're going the delusional route, you're going to repress these feelings and not be honest with what's going on in your 4D. If your 4D is what makes your 3D, you can't just ignore that. If she was more honest and she just said, listen, I do imagine, I do try to feel it real, but sometimes I think these thoughts of I'm not good enough, or like I don't think I'm pretty enough, or I'm not his type, these are limiting beliefs. These are assumptions that she has to change. And the way to change them is the Three-Pronged Method, which I'll link a video to it up here. But basically, you want to tell yourself that this is just a belief about reality. It's not necessarily a true thing. You just think it's true because you've thought it so much. but it's not like a hard fact in every single probable reality, in every single timeline. And even in this one, it might not necessarily be true. It could just be your insecurities talking. So you remind yourself that it's not true. And then you feel the emotion opposite to the emotion that this current negative limiting belief makes you feel. So if it makes you feel ugly and unwanted, you'd instead feel pretty and beautiful and wanted. And step 3, you turn your imagination in the opposite direction, just like you did with your emotions. So for this girl, she's probably imagining things like SP rejecting her. She's probably imagining things like SP continuing to ignore her or picking prettier third parties. Instead, she would imagine being chosen. She'd imagine SP telling you like, I can't believe I didn't realize how beautiful you were before. Or, you're exactly my type. I thought I liked this other kind of girl, but no, I like your type. That's the 3-pronged method of changing your beliefs. I also like to suggest that people actively seek evidence in the 3D of things that support their new belief. So for example, you can look for evidence that you are pretty. You can look for evidence that even in an economic downturn, people can make money. Because this serves as proof that your beliefs are just beliefs. They're not actually truth about reality that everybody shares. And again, if you encounter hiccups along the way and your 3D shows you something that you are surprised about or didn't want to see, ask yourself honestly, have I been doing something in my mind, in my mental state, or in my 4D that could have led to this? Did I spiral recently? Did I complain in my head? Did I argue with them in my head recently? And if the answer truly, honestly is no, then just wait, because the 3D is a time-delayed reflection. There is a lag between what you do in your mind and what you see in the 3D. And if you're really assured that you've been doing everything in the 4D right, then it won't matter. You'll just be like, oh yeah, that's just a reflection of last week's spiraling. It doesn't matter. I'm just gonna continue doing my own thing, feeling happy, feeling loved, feeling wealthy, instead of spiraling. So in our example of that girl, if she actually spent less time thinking that she was actually gonna go on a trip to see her SP and that she actually had the plane ticket booked and everything, if she spent less time trying to like trick herself into hallucinating that the 3D was different, and she spent more time just embodying the state, feeling how she would feel if she were loved, she'd have a lot more luck. So if she just straight up acknowledged, yeah, he's not with me right now, he still has me blocked, that's just what it is in a 3D, but she spent the majority of her time feeling attractive, loved, chosen, forgiven, irresistible, radiant, then her 3D would eventually change. Much more than her feeling deep down inside unloved, unwanted, rejected, and literally trying to convince herself that she's with him, forcing herself to try to like hallucinate things that she wants to see, and then spiraling the day afterwards because her SP isn't here yet and her 3D hasn't changed. Do you see the distinction? One is living from the end, thinking and feeling as if you have what you want. The other is living as if, trying to pretend like you really are that person without changing your inner thoughts and your feelings. Anyway, I hope that helps. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment down below and I'll answer them when I can. But I want you guys to remember that manifesting isn't about tricking yourself or forcing things. It's not about browbeating your brain into giving you what you want it to give you. Instead, it's about learning how you can control your mental energies and your mental actions so you can focus on the feelings and thoughts that you do want, instead of allowing your brain to run away thinking about worst case scenarios or spiraling. And every day that you persist and every day that you're trying to manifest is a day that you're getting better, and it's another day that you're leveling up as a manifestor, learning what works for you and what doesn't. So don't give up. You guys are much more powerful than you think. And I believe in you guys, so you should believe in yourselves too. You got this.